Donald continues to dominate headlines, and joining us now to talk more about that is Ryan Lovelace. He's the campaign reporter for the Washington Examiner. Thanks so much for joining us here on Newsmax Now.
Thanks for having me.
So you have a new column, Donald Trump surging to first place in North Carolina. What do you attribute to his surge in the polls?
Well, I think there are a number of different things that have really led to him taking off. One of the things that we've noticed in North Carolina, looking at the recent polling there, is that he's especially popular with young people and especially young men. His comments are very brash. They're full of bravado. It's very macho, and that's something that really does appeal to a lot of Republican primary voters who are especially used to candidates that they consider to be more moderate or maybe part of the establishment, who are more willing to try to tone it down and walk that careful line between the hard right and the establishment middle as they prepare to eventually run in the general election.
Well, as we mentioned, he's surging in the polls, beating out Jeb Bush by 4 points. Should Jeb Bush be concerned?
I'm not sure if Jeb Bush should ultimately be concerned. One of the things that even a new national poll that shows Donald Trump out in front says is that even though most voters, a plurality of voters anyway, support Donald Trump right now, they don't believe he'll be the nominee. They still do believe, as I'm sure you know, that Jeb Bush will be the nominee. Now, there are a number of different candidates that are all polling in a very crowded field right now. It's going to take some time to see how this will shake out. Really, one of the things that I've been hearing is even in a state like New Hampshire, where Donald Trump initially surged, that was where we really saw him start to take off as he talked about immigration and national security issues that are important to people in New Hampshire, is that it's something where Donald Trump's success will have to really gain momentum in these early states, and there's so many candidates that are right bunched up there. 20% could win New Hampshire, and anyone at this point could really be walking away with that state.
Now, Ryan, I want to go back to what you just mentioned. We're talking about that Economist poll, and you're right. He's doing very well in the polls, but still voters don't think he's going to be the Republican nominee. Why do you think that is?
Well, I really think that they see some of his comments as more indicative of his personality as a reality TV star. They don't know him as a presidential candidate. They know him from the NBC show. They know him from some of his antics and his brash statements. I think as the presidential debates come in August, and as people get a chance to see all of these candidates next to each other, they'll get a better idea of who's a serious candidate, who might not be, and whether or not someone like Donald Trump can actually separate himself from the pack. Now, there's going to be a number of candidates that are vying for those final spots on the stage. Donald Trump won't be one of them. He still has to file some of his paperwork with the FEC, but thus far, he has filed everything that he's promised. If he does so, you can expect to see him on that debate stage, and that might be the first time where a number of people who weren't taking him seriously before will look at him and say, maybe that's someone that we really should consider as a presidential candidate, not just a big media personality.
And with that in mind, who should be concerned the most?
Well, I think there's a number of other candidates that are competing for the same voters that Donald Trump most appeals to. Donald Trump appeals to the far right. He appeals to voters that Ted Cruz, Texas Senator running for president, Bobby Jindal, are also courting, which is why you've seen Texas Senator Ted Cruz as one of the only other presidential candidates, rather, that has come to Donald Trump's defense and not what he's really said is, while I might not have said the things that Donald Trump said about immigration the same way he did, I certainly appreciate his willingness to push back against those who disagree with him. On the other hand, you have someone like Bobby Jindal, who's also along the same lines generally on immigration. He's hawkish, he's a hardliner, but he too has taken a different approach and said, I don't agree with Donald Trump. He's gone at Donald Trump, and you can probably see the reason he's doing that is because he wants to be on the debate stage where Trump is, and he will not be unless he moves up in the polls. So people like that are
Ryan,
appealing to
we're going to have to leave it there. We're running
out
out of time, but we really appreciate your thoughts. Thank you so much.